Hi, AT from CNC at Home. As an IT guy, I've been interested in taking notes electronically versus pencil and paper kind of thing for many years. Actually in 2011, so a long time ago now, I bought an iPad to experiment with taking notes that way. On my computer, I use Microsoft OneNote, and on the iPad, I use Notes Plus. This video is not going to be about that, so I'm not going to go into detail about what I like and dislike there. One thing that I have found very humorous is every time a new electronic notebook or electronic paper, digital paper thing comes out, they always make claims like, feels like paper. As close to paper as it gets. Unless you actually use real paper. They're trying so hard to be real paper and they're missing the mark. Which is too bad. It'd be kind of cool if somebody ever figured it out. What I'd like to talk about is basically pens and pencils and paper versus electronic note kind of taking stuff. I just want to read through some pros and cons of the two. Pretty much any of the pros for one is a con for the other as I was going through this. So I'm just gonna, I've got my notes over here, so I'm just gonna read through some of these real quickly. So with electronic notes, easily undo stuff. It's like you write something, it's like you can undo and it's gone, you start over again. You can do that with pencil and paper, some pens even can erase, but it's not real quick. You have to have a good eraser, that sort of thing. So I listed that as a con. A con for electronic notes is the cost. Oh my goodness, you have to buy a device and you may have to have a subscription. You have to have their stylus and just all sorts of expenses there. A pro for pencil and paper is basically just for the price of a device for doing electronic notes. That's a lifetime supply of pads of paper and pencils and pens. So you're definitely coming out ahead going with paper and pencils and pens. I just find that funny. A pro for electronic is you can resize and move stuff around in a document easily. That's kind of cool, because how many times have you started writing notes and all of a sudden you need more space over here and you can't just grab it and move it down. Super easy to do when you're doing electronic notes. Not so easy when you're doing paper notes. A con for the electronic one is you need electricity. The thing runs on a battery, or it plugs in. I don't know if anything plugs in, but at least runs on a battery. And if you don't keep it charged up, don't use it all the time, or if you're using it for a long time, you're out of power, you're stuck. Paper and pencil, you can take it, you can be out in the middle of the woods, camping for a month, and paper and pencil still going to work that entire time without having to worry about charging it. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, electronic, you can convert your handwriting into text, which makes it searchable. That's a really cool thing about electronic notes, and that's one thing I like is, oh, where are my notes about the thingamajig? You can just search thingamajig, boom, you found it. Can't do that with handwritten notes. There are some styles that help with that sort of thing, but still not really easy to do. When you do electronic notes, they're easy to distribute. You can just click an email. You can store it in a common location. So it's real easy to distribute your notes when you do that. Not so much when it's pencil and paper. You got to take a picture of it. You got to scan it. Then you have to attach it and email it. So there's a little more involved there. A disadvantage of electronic notes is future compatibility. What format does it save stuff in? Can you make changes to it 10 years from now if you need to add a little something? Can you even open it 10 years from now? I have documents that I created years ago using the Lotus Notes suite. I can't even open those files now. So they're pretty much dead to me. So something to think about. Paper and pencil and pens, it's like you'll always be able to look at that and read it. You'll always be able to write on it. So that's an advantage there. In some electronic notes, you can link to other notes. So when I'm using OneNote and I'm referencing some other notes that I've done, it's super easy to create a link so that as I'm going through it, I can navigate back and forth around. And that's kind of cool. Not so easy to do with paper and pencil. You are limited to colors. Some don't even have color. Some of these electronic paper is just black and white for the most part. Some do have color, but you're limited. You have to create your styles, what you want to do. And it's not so bad, but it's a little limiting. When you're using real pencil and pens and paper, it's however many pens and pencils you happen to bring with you. So I just reach into my desk drawer here. It's like, I've got a red pen, a green pen, a blue pen. I've got highlighters, a black pen. Just, I could bring an arsenal of colors if I needed to. But I'm limited to whatever the tip is on that, so I can't do real wide strokes or something like that without bringing other markers in, which I do have those markers that I tested here just a couple videos ago, and those would work, but I don't want to bring this whole stack of those around. But it's available if I like doing colors. That's a pro. What else do we have? Oh, electronic, easy to back up. It's basically like sending that out to somebody else. I can back it up real easily. When you're doing stuff on paper, if you lose this, it's gone. If it happens to go in the trash or into recycling, it's gone. There's no way to get that back. So a little easier to back up. You do have limitations when you're doing electronic stuff. This is a con of the stylus that you use. Some devices you have to use their specific stylus. If you're doing something like an iPad, you can use your finger, which isn't the easiest to write with. You can get like an iPen and that sort of thing, but those are expensive and they work well. But it's like writing on glass because you literally are writing on glass, so you don't have that texture or the resistance of real paper. So that's kind of a drawback. With paper and pen, it's just like whatever writing utensil you happen to have. If somebody happens to have extra pens, you go into a conference room or a meeting room, there's always pens and pencils lying around for you to use. So that's typically not an issue. You can, like I said, you can define colors and styles electronically and have those set up. So if there's certain things you like to do, that's kind of cool. You are stuck with the pens and pencils you bring, so it's kind of a drawback to pen and paper. Getting set up for a meeting using electronic notes is a time-consuming process. Any documents you might get ahead of time, you need to import them into your device and have those ready to go. If somebody brings a handout to the meeting or a class, you're kind of stuck. I mean, maybe you can take a picture of it if your device has a camera. If your device doesn't have a camera, you're stuck. You can't put that into your electronic notes then. So that's kind of a drawback. When you're using pen and paper, guess what? My pencil will work on any handouts that they give me, typically. So that's an advantage there. With electronic notes, the devices are bulky and they're easily breakable. You drop that sucker and it could be toast. With a notepad, and here's just a little spiral notepad that I have. If I drop this 100 times, I can stick it in my pocket and bend it. It's fine. No big deal. And if it were to somehow get totally wrecked, I'm out 50 cents, if that, for something like that. So paper is much more sturdy, and it does come in multiple form factors. So this is my Buck Frenzy log. I got that from my friend Keith, our very first time we did Buck Frenzy. Here's a tablet that I got for when we were doing Geek Weekend. I have notes in here of stuff that I want to do and that sort of thing. So it's a little bit bigger. You can see the size difference. I like using these little pads of yellow paper, and I don't care the color, it just happens to be what I have. And you can also get the full size sheets of paper, and so you can get multiple form factors. They come even bigger than that. With a tablet, I'm gonna grab my tablet here real quick. You kind of stuck to whatever size it is. One of the drawbacks when I bought this tablet was its size. That was the biggest they had at the time. Now they do have bigger ones. They're kind of pricey, but if I was going to buy one, I just seriously think about getting a bigger one because I can always use more real estate. So those are the pros and cons between the two. It comes down to there's no better way to take notes than using actual pen or pencil and paper. Then the argument becomes, which do you use, pen or pencil? They both have positive and negatives. I'm not going to go through all of those. I have been using a mechanical pencil since high school. We don't need to go into how long ago that was, but I did have a 40th reunion a couple years back, so it's been a few years. So, easily 45 years, I've been pretty much exclusively using mechanical pencils. The one that I used back in high school and really liked for, even still, is this Pentel Click. They don't make the Pentel Click anymore, but they do make a Quick Click, which is very similar. So they always make changes. But this one is one that I bought over 30 years ago. It was in the early 90s. I know I bought this one. So there you go. Here's the 30-year-old pencil. Still works great. I've got some others that Pentel makes some really good pencils, but a lot of places do. This is one that I really like. I've got a couple of them that I use. It kind of is closed, but it comes apart. This flips around, put it together. You've got an eraser on the end. It feeds out the tip. It's got good weight. It feels nice. And then when you're done, you can flip it around, close it, and that protects the tip. Love these. I've had one of these for I don't know how many years. They're not cheap. Like something like this you can pick up for a couple bucks. These are more like 15 to 20 bucks. But I really like them. It's a pencil you can hang on to forever. I like them so much, I bought one for my son. I got him a black one and gave it to him for some special occasion. And then the same for my daughter, got her a pink one. They both really like them and use them occasionally. So that's kind of cool. I also have this really old one. And talk about old. They stopped making these in the early 70s. It's a Barrel TD5. Love this pen. It's lightweight. It has this really nice knurled area where you can grip onto it. I found that if you try to use 0.7 millimeter lead in a 0.5 millimeter pencil, it causes issues. It doesn't feed, and it makes you think that the pencil is broken after 50 plus years. Fortunately, I eventually figured out that I was trying to run 0.7 millimeter lead through a 0.5 millimeter pencil. Tip for the day, doesn't work so well. Some other pencils that I just received, this is from Yisan, is this pencil set. This is something that they sent me to try out. It's the same company that sent me those markers a couple weeks back. There are 4 pencils in here. There's a 0.9, I guess is this one, a 0.9, a 0.7, a 0.5, and a 0.3 millimeter pencil. That's what I'm really interested in. I've never used a 0.3 millimeter pencil, and one of the reasons that I like the 0.5 millimeter, which all of my pencils are, is I can write really small and get really fine details. I used mechanical pencils when I did drafting back in college. As an engineer, we had to do drafting, and I had multiple pencils that I used. I had essentially the Pentel Click is what I used, and I had one with a standard 2B or HB hardness of graphite end. That's kind of similar to a number 2 pencil. And then I had one with a softer lead, again, still the 5 millimeter, but softer so it would make a darker line. And then I had a 9 millimeter that had B, I think was the rating, which is a softer, darker graphite lead thing. So that's what I used for drafting exclusively. I didn't use regular pencils. I do like regular pencils to a point. The problem is you can't keep them sharp. Unless you have a good pencil sharpener and you're constantly sharpening it, or you have a knife, you whittle it sharp. Takes too much time and you don't get a consistent tip. When this starts to get dull, you just rotate it a little bit, or you just click on the back and you get a little bit more. Always nice and sharp. That's really why I like mechanical pencils. I like wooden pencils. I use them. I have one sitting over by my computer that I use for running the CNC machines. Let me throw up a quick image of that. And I take notes there of parameters, settings, do a little bit of math, that sort of thing. And just having a regular pencil is fine. I don't need a fancy mechanical one there. I could have a mechanical one there. But I have done so many wooden pencil etching projects that I have a bunch of them. Some that have just been tests, so I have a bunch of test stuff all over them. Others that were warped. They weren't flat. They had a little bend to them, and so they weren't going to work well for etching on. But I've done etching with both the 3018 router and with the lasers. Look for those videos on my channel and see how I've done that. But what I want to do is bust this open and try out these pencils. I also want to try out these erasers. I like this type of plastic eraser. That's normally what I do use. Here's one that I've had for years. Still has a ton of life left in it, as you can see. And when I'm doing a lot of notes, I like a big eraser. Using the eraser on the back of the pencil works, but I don't want to destroy that. And usually when I'm erasing, sometimes I erase a lot. So having a big eraser like that's kind of cool. This kit actually came with 2 of those. It also came with replacement lead for each of the sizes. So there's a 0.3, 0.5, 0.7, 0.9 millimeter lead. And there's a whole tube of replacement erasers. I think there's 10 of them in there. So that's pretty cool. So why don't we bust this open, take a look at these pencils, try them out, and see what we like or dislike about them. Oh, one other thing I want to talk about, the argument between pens and pencils. As you can see, I take notes all the time, different various things, doing math problems or just figuring stuff out, taking notes. And a lot of times it is in pencil. This is a project. It was just on loose leaf paper. And I was doing this project, and these pages happened to get wet. And the text on here is fine. However, one little section on the last page I did with ink. It got wet and it smeared. It also bled through to the other side, and it bled through to the page that was on top of it. So it kind of wrecked these notes a little bit. And because of that, I made the decision, it's like, if you're taking notes that could possibly get wet and it's important, do it in pencil. Pencil seems to not care so much if it gets wet. The paper doesn't like that, but the pencil doesn't care so much. Here's a bunch of other notes that I've taken using pencil. It's all done in pencil. One page I'd like to show you. This one was actually done on my iPad. And I then printed it out because I wanted a hard copy of it to put in with the rest of these notes. And it's a good thing I did because the file got corrupted and then I was unable to open it. I had to delete that and I've lost it. There's no recovering those notes. So I have that one printout. Yeah, I'm good to go. So there's another con for the electronic one. It's kind of the, you might be able to back it up, but in this case, a backup wouldn't help. The file itself got corrupted. I mean, how often have you had a piece of paper get corrupted so that the information is wrong? Or I can't look at it, my paper's corrupted. Doesn't happen. Okay, let's get this thing opened up and try some writing and see how these work. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I have these pencils out of the package, and we've got the 2 erasers, we've got all the extra lead, the 0.3, 0.5, 0.7, 0.9, which is kind of cool to have all of those available. Got the extra erasers. Let's take a look at these. I'll start with the 0.5 because that's what I like. One thing that these have that's really cool is this little barrel that spins around here. And that can be set on the type of lead that you're using. So I usually use HB. I do have some other hardnesses that I use. So this has a 3H, 2H, H, HB, B, 2B, F, 3H. Okay. I have that set on the HB, but it's real easy to change. Just holding the barrel, you can rotate the pencil, or you can rotate the barrel around that. That's kind of a neat feature. I like that. That would have come in handy in my drafting days when I had different lead thicknesses in different pencils. Initial feel, Yeah, it feels good. It's a little front heavy. I like that. So that's exactly how I like a pencil. The writing, don't think it's going to be too hard to mess that up. Too hard to mess up. You need a way to hold the graphite. Initial thought, seems to work fine. It's better than those disposable pencils. I've got one of those over here. Got these from work. We had a whole mess of them. I don't particularly care for these. They work fine. It's just they're not real sturdy. They're very, very light, and they have a tendency to fail. The lead will push back in, that sort of thing. But they're cheap, and they work okay. It's something to hold the lead in there. They also have a plastic tip, which works, but a metal tip will last longer for sure. These Yisan pencils, they do have a nice long metal tip, so that really will protect the lead for you. The 0.5 millimeter worked just fine. The 0.7, not my favorite size, but let's see how it works. Oh yeah, that works fine. Let's see how, oops, I can't spell. That works. Nice. Nice. Okay, that works great. Make sure that one's set to HB because that's, I'm assuming the lead that came in here, because that's what the package is all set for. We'll do the same here with the 9 millimeter. We'll just pop a little bit out here and write something. How well does it do? It do well. Nice English there. If I need to erase something, I'm assuming this back cap just comes off. Yep. And there's a nice little plastic eraser. We'll see how well that works. Yeah, it's okay. About what you'd expect. And here's always the problem. With this type of end cap, to get this back on, I advanced the lead. Not a big deal, but something to keep in mind. Again, that's why one of the reasons I like using an external eraser like this is it's so much easier just to grab this, if you have it, than to try and open up the back of a pencil and use what's inside of there. See if I can get this open. There we go. Let's give this a quick test. Where's that 9? All right, we'll put our period back here, and all right, this is what I want to erase. We'll underline it even. It's nice, big, thick, bold, this. We'll take the eraser. And we'll just undo. It seems to erase just like what you'd expect, so those are good. Now, this is what I've been waiting for. This is the 0.3 millimeter. I've never used a 0.3 millimeter before. And I'll want to compare that to the 0.5. So let's get this set to HB. There we go. Is this the 0.5? No, that's the 0.7. It looked a little thick. All right, 0.5. I'm going to write something. I'll try to write something nicely. So, write something nicely. Okay, here we go. 0.3. See how this works. Okay, that's going to be a problem. I had a little bit too much sticking out, put too much pressure, and snapped it off. I know a lot of people do that with 0.5s, and I just say, well, you have a heavy hand. So I just need to make sure not to put too much out. Okay. I like it. Me likey. Is that how you spell likey, or is it L-I-K-Y? I don't know. Now, that's going to be a problem. Well, not a problem. It's going to be something to get used to. That 0.3 millimeter is so small, and that's, think about it, it's 40% smaller than the 0.5. Think about that, 40%. That's a substantial amount. So I just need to make sure that I don't advance too much on there. It may mean that I need to click this more frequently. I don't know how much comes out in one click. More. Yeah. That's going to be something to get used to. And it's not the pen's fault. You can only have so much out. It's very thin lead. It's 0.3 millimeters. I just need to write with a gentler hand, as it were. So overall, for reviewing these, to be transparent as well, Yisan sent this to me to try out, and so they sent them to me for free. There will be a link down in the description, wherever that is, down in the description. But this isn't really that bad. I mean, seriously, 4 pencils, the extra erasers, the 2 big erasers, and the extra lead, $10. Just for the pencils, that's $2.50 each. Not bad at all. Plus you get the extra lead, you get the 2 big erasers. That's a good deal. The pencils seem to work great. This is probably the one that I'll use the most, the 0.5, because that's what I'm used to, the 0.5. I'm going to have to try this one out the next time I'm doing some geometry, see if I can do some really fine lines with that. Typically, I don't use 0.7 for whatever reason. It just hasn't been what I've liked. It's not heavy enough for big, thick lines, and it's too thick for the nice fine lines. But I know my daughter and my wife use 0.7, so yeah, maybe they can use that one. The 0.9, don't have much use for that, but again, when I'm doing some drawing or drafting kinds of things, this should make a nice big line. You can see the difference here on that. So you've got this nice thick line versus what the 0.3 millimeter did. Quite a difference. Just something to keep in mind. I like this little barrel to keep track of what kind of graphite I put in there, because I do have some B for the 9 millimeter that I could put in there, and so I can just roll this over to B, so that's something a little softer. And then of course we've got our erasers handy, just in case you forget the big one. Always got a small one on hand. So, I know this wasn't a typical video, but I do use pencil and paper quite frequently for doing CNC at home stuff. I'm writing out ideas, I'm sketching up ideas, I'm doing math, writing down settings and parameters that I want to use or I did use, and little notes about which one worked better, that type of thing. So I'm constantly using it's typically smaller sheets of paper like this, and a pencil, and it works really well. So just want to give a thumbs up for pencils and paper. Kicks butt over electronic note-taking, which is unfortunate because I wanted so much for electronic note-taking to be way cooler than it is. And I've been looking into it for decades, literally since the 90s. I've been looking into how well that would work. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in buying some Yisan pencils like this, check the link down below. It's only $10. It was $9.99. It's a great deal for 4 pencils and all this stuff. And it seems to be of good quality. Can't beat that. Enjoy doing your CNC at home projects.